Morning, everybody. I am the author of one of my books, anyway. You Missed God on the Way to the Mosque, the Temple, or the Church, How to See God Everywhere. I'm Steve Lentini. And so I've been reading from the book, and this week's reading is from chapter 5. That way you don't have to buy the book. And this is about how to see God everywhere. And the reason I read the book on YouTube is I can explain, it's not like going to Audible. I can explain some of the thinking and how I came to the reasoning that there's no place God is absent in the universe. And that's based on my own near death experience, where I was 1 second in intensive care, and the next second I was one with everything and nothing, one with the infinite. So I got a glimpse of what's next. And that's what I call it. What's next? There's only infinity in this universe, and we don't even understand that. There's only the now, an infinite amount of nows. This physical existence may end, but our existence, our consciousness doesn't end. We join with the infinite. At least I did on November 18th, 2002. So I'm reading again from chapter 5. All right, integration, doing good, living awake. If you want to listen to some of the other chapters, go back and listen to them. If you just want to join in every week when I read them, well, then you'll catch it. And if I miss a week, it's because I take a week off from time to time. I take a day off, right? Okay. Integration, doing good and living awake. Recognition changes nothing and everything. Nothing, because life keeps unfolding exactly as it always has. Everything, because how you meet, it is no longer the same. Everything, because how you meet, it is no longer the same. You greet each day and moment as a day in heaven with God, never absent. You choose to view life as happening for you, not to you. Well, that's what it's about, right? Is recognizing that God is never absent. Nothing, because life keeps unfolding exactly as it always has. Everything, because how you meet, it is no longer the same. It's how you meet each moment. So when you greet each day and moment as a day in heaven, right? We create our own hell. But if you create each day as a day in heaven with God, never absent, you choose to view life as happening for you, not to you. And you can see so much of this society gets crazy with life is happening to them. No, it's for them. It's to wake us up. And more about that in this chapter. So integration is not about becoming better. It's about becoming present, right? I share that because in my near death experience, there was only the now. There was no past or future. And this little voice that I call the acorn brain, it wasn't there. It doesn't go with us. That little judge we have, that small-minded thinker does not go with us, at least in my experience. That's what I experienced. I don't try to convince anybody of it. You have to prove what I'm talking about to yourself. That God wasn't meant for us to find him in temples and mosques and churches or meeting halls. God is everywhere, and in all the people and events that occur in your life, especially the ones that bug you. Because 1 second I was fine, November 13th, 2002, and the next second I needed an ambulance. And 5 days later, in intensive care with two friends at the end of my bed, I flatlined. 1 second in this world, the next second in the next world. And it's very different. It's way beyond my comprehension. My comprehension. I suspect it will be way beyond yours as well. So once God is no longer something to believe in, defend, or earn, life stops feeling like a test. It begins to feel like participation, no passive acceptance. Not passive acceptance, engaged awareness. The goal is to be aware of God's presence in every moment. And for me now, after that day, it's like God whacked me with a 2x4 to wake me up. Because I ended up spending 100 days in the hospital, 60 days straight, and 40 out of the next 60, and 6 months out of work. And I got a glimpse of what awaits us. So we don't want not passive acceptance, engaged awareness. awake, being present to life, that it's for you. But this brain, this little acorn brain, loves to enroll us all in the victim story that life's happening to you. Life is not happening to us, it's happening for us, in my experience. Right? So, doing good without needing credit. When fear loosens its grip, goodness stops being performative. So, I'm reading from my book, You Missed God on the Way to the Mosque, the Temple, or the Church: How to See God Everywhere. You don't have to go to a holy house to meet God. God is in the guy next door, or the lady next door, the person that bugs you at the shopping mart, or the store, or at work. There's a gift in it. And that is an awareness that most people don't have. And more are starting to realize it, that life is for us. So when fear loosens its grip, goodness stops being performative. You don't do good to be seen. You don't do good to be rewarded. You don't do good to offset guilt. You do good because it feels aligned. How do you feel when you do good? And the only thing mentioned in my life review was the good I had done, the lives I had touched. Think about that for a minute. How do you feel when you do good? Moral philosophy, it's not. It's experiential. I mean, could you do good simply because you morally believe that's what's the best thing to do? Yes. But when we experience it on purpose, when our goal becomes to do good and leave everything and everyone a little better than we found them in every moment, you end up finding God everywhere and seeing God everywhere and loving the moment. God's unconditional love is in the now. It's loving everything that shows up. The infinite doesn't love like we love, right? Because we love people we like, people we're attracted to. God's unconditional love, when I passed from intensive care to what's next, there was no past or future. There was only the now. That's embracing God's love, being in the now. So goodness, when it's real, has a quality of effortlessness. It doesn't argue. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't need witnesses. It's what happens when resistance falls away. You understand why goodness feels good, not as a payoff, but as resonance. It's life recognizing itself through action. When awareness is present, kindness is not heroic, it's natural. It's this brain that suggests we should be angry at people who are different than us, who believe different, feel different, and it's exaggerated in today's environment. So I'm reading from the book that I wrote, You Missed God on the Way to the Mosque, the Temple, or the Church, and How to See God Everywhere, right? That's the purpose of the book. So living awake doesn't mean serenity without interruption. It doesn't mean the absence of anger, grief, or confusion. It means meeting those experiences without abandoning the moment. Awareness doesn't prevent emotion. It prevents unconsciousness. You still react, but you notice. You still stumble, but you don't build an identity around it, right? Because in my life review, only the good I had done was mentioned, only the lives I had touched. So when you stumble, you realize you don't build your identity around it because we're supposed to. We're supposed to fall. How did you learn to walk? Did you learn to walk without falling? Or your kids, or your neighbor's kids, or your nieces and nephews? No, that's life. We learn by falling. So you'll still suffer, but you don't have to multiply it with a story, because everyone gathers evidence to prove what they're up to is true. And we have to guard against gathering evidence, because that's how this little brain works. It's the small-minded thinker. The limitless thinker, like God's infinite universe, it isn't measuring our mistakes. We are. And we believe the idea of sin because that was created by people to keep people under control. Now, are there things we shouldn't do? Of course. We know that. We know. And many people still do that because they're angry. They're run by this little thinker, small-minded thinker. They're not modeling the infinite. What created a universe, do you think is small-minded? So here, I'm reading from the book You Missed God on the Way to the Mosque, the Temple of the Church, How to See God Everywhere. This is chapter 5. I've read every chapter on YouTube, and I'm going to read them until the book is done. And then I'm going to start my next book, What Misses You Was Never Meant to Reach You. What misses you was never meant to reach you. No, my next book, I'm sorry, What Reaches You Was Never Meant to Miss You. The second book is What Misses You Was Never Meant to Reach You. So what reaches you was never meant to miss you is my next book. Let me get that right, all right? Okay. It's a series. So living awake means life's no longer something happening to you. It's something happening as you. You're experiencing life and God when you embrace every moment, everything, and everyone, especially the ones that are really troublesome and challenging, because those are the gifts, the greatest gifts, in my experience. I'm not trying to convince anybody of it. They're our greatest gifts. They're not wrapped as we would like, but that's where they're presented by the infinite, by God, whatever you call it, to wake us up. The end of spiritual performance. So one of the quiet shifts that happens here in the end of spiritual is the end of spiritual performance. No more trying to appear evolved, no more managing how aligned you look, no more measuring yourself against imaginary standards. Presence doesn't compete. It doesn't ask whether you're doing this right. It only asks one thing. Are you here or are you elsewhere? When I was in intensive care, 1 second I was with 2 friends at the end of my bed. The next second I was one with everything and nothing. Immense light, mercy, grace. This little voice that talks in my head, back in my body, didn't go with me. I was one with God. Immense light, mercy, grace, but there was only the now. There was no past or future. Only the now. That's where God's unconditional love is when we love every moment and everything in it. And we work to leave everything and everyone a little better than we find them. In every moment, we start to embrace what shows up in life, right? That's the title of my next book. What reaches you was never meant to miss you. It's for you. And you don't have to go to church to find God. God is everywhere. Everywhere, especially in the people and the moments that bother you. So, are you here or elsewhere is where I left off in the book. I'm reading from the book, You Missed God on the Way to the Mosque, the Temple of the Church. This is the book I wrote a few months ago. So integration doesn't show up as enlightenment. It shows up as listening without rehearsing your response. Noticing when you've left the moment and gently returning, because we're human. We're going to leave the moment. We're going to get angry. We're going to get upset. We need to catch it and realize there's a gift in that showing up in our lives. At least that's what I learned, right? You got to prove this to yourself. Don't take my word for anything, because I also wrote the book, You Might Be Full of Shit If. And I freely admit I'm full of shit somewhere in that book. We have to have a sense of humor about ourselves and know we're here to make mistakes. That's how we learn and grow. Gently returning to doing what life and God is asking without resentment. In other words, whatever shows up, that's God's unconditional love when you embrace the moment, every moment. Letting small acts matter. In my life review, even people I smiled at were in my life review, not any mention of sin, which are mistakes. That's how I was learning and growing. And I've learned and grown, and I got more work to do. I'm not sin-free. I'm human. So awakening doesn't make life extraordinary. It makes the ordinary transparent. You can see the purpose for things showing up in your life. And if you're struggling with your purpose, find it in your challenges, because you're learning something to teach others, not to hide your embarrassments or mistakes, not to hide them. Your failures, that's what the brain calls them, failures. They're lessons. It's learning. So a simple orientation, not a practice. When you notice tension, contraction, or urgency, ask, not as a technique, but as curiosity. What am I resisting right now? Not to fix it, not to spiritualize it, to notice. Awareness does the rest. Living without a final answer. Integration means making peace with not knowing. I don't know everything. I don't know and I don't care. I remind myself every day I have no image, no name, no form. I just want to be in the moment. That's where God was when I left intensive care. In the moment. I call it the now on steroids, which transformed my idea of unconditional love. It means loving everything and everyone, because that's what God is. The creator of a universe is just the moment. So integration means making peace with not knowing, not as confusion, but as openness. Life doesn't ask for certainty, it asks for participation. This little brain wants certainty. It wants things to be the same. That's how it's comfortable. And when you're uncomfortable, be with it. Go with it. Don't say, oh, that's not me. It's not who I am. Get over it. No, it's who you're always choosing to be. Can you resist the moment? Yes. I was 50 resisting a lot of moments. And then God whacked me with a 2x4. Literally. I mean, 1 second I was fine. The next second I needed an ambulance. November 13th, 2002. November 18th, I flatlined. 2 friends at the end of my bed. 1 second. The next second, I was one with God. That's why you don't need a temple or a mosque or a church. When belief loosens, authority fades, and fear softens, something quieter takes place. Trust, not in outcomes, but in presence. To be present. You don't need to know what everything means. You only need to be willing to meet what's here, meet what's in the now. The brain is afraid. You don't have to be afraid. You can move through the fear because the brain loves certainty. That's why I call it the acorn brain. It's the small-minded thinker. We can see an oak tree. We know an acorn could be an oak tree. An acorn has to get smashed open and crushed into the ground. Might be a metaphor. That's where we awaken. In our darkest moments, at least for me. What remains? Doing good stops being a moral effort. Living awake stops being a spiritual achievement. What remains is a simple lived intelligence, responsive, grounded, human. Remember, only the good flashed before me in my life review. All the lives I had touched. All the lives I had touched. I had no idea at age 50 that I had touched so many lives. But I only learned it after I died. And gratefully came back. Gratefully. You can read about it in all my books. If you go to stevelentiniauthor.com, you don't have to buy a book. Email me, steve@stevelentini.com. I'll mail you a book, free. Steve, just add a Steve over here, steve@stevelentini.com. Give me your address and your name, and I'll mail you a book, my gift. I'm here to do good. That's what makes a difference. We're building treasures in the next life when we do good instead of focusing on building treasure here, which, by the way, when I died, I took nothing with me except the good I had done. It astounded me. It was beyond my comprehension, and I couldn't put it all together until I was back in intensive care. After the life review, I was asked a question: stay or go? And my consciousness surrendered fully with thy will be done. And I was right back in intensive care. Okay, so we're talking about doing good, right? What remains? So doing good stops being a moral effort. You don't become someone else. You stop leaving yourself. And in that stopping, something obvious reveals itself. You were never meant to escape life to find God. You were meant to live life fully, meet life fully, and recognize what's always been here. Now I'm going to read you a parable. The Bell. This is a story. A woman visited a monastery known for its silence. At the center of the courtyard hung a bell. A monk instructed visitors that it only rang when someone truly arrived. Many tried. Some rang it by force. Some prayed in front of it. Some studied the bell, asking the monks how it worked. The bell never moved, even for people trying to ring it. Late one afternoon, the woman sat beneath it. Instead of trying, she stopped waiting for anything to happen. She noticed the breeze, the ache in her legs, the sound of her own breath. As she stood to leave, her shoulder brushed the rope. The bell rang. Clear, full, unmistakable. Startled, she turned back. A monk nearby smiled and said, "The bell doesn't respond to effort, it responds to presence." The woman didn't bow. She didn't ask questions. She walked out of the courtyard differently than she entered, not knowing more, but having less. Living awake doesn't give us answers, by the way. It removes the urgency to keep asking for answers. When doing good is no longer a strategy, when presence replaces performance, when God is no longer elsewhere, God is everywhere, everywhere, especially in the things that bug us and bother us. At least in my experience, the greatest gifts were not wrapped as I would have liked, but they turned out to be amazing gifts in my life. So living awake doesn't give you answers. It removes the urgency to keep asking them. When doing good is no longer a strategy, when presence replaces performance, when God is no longer elsewhere, right? I'm reading from my book, You Missed God on the Way to the Mosque, the Temple, or the Church, How to See God Everywhere. That's a choice. So when God is no longer elsewhere, the search begins to lose momentum, not because it failed, because it completed its work. Which brings us to the final question, not a religious question, not a philosophical one, not something to solve, a question you can only ask when you stop moving. A question that reveals itself only when the mind grows quiet enough to hear what's already here. And once it's seen, it cannot be unseen. I can give testimony to that. Once it's seen, it cannot be unseen. Now, that's the end of the chapter. Next week, I'm going to read chapter 6. And it's, again, I've been reading from the book. You missed my book. You missed God on the Way to the Mosque, the Temple, or the Church, and How to See God Everywhere. And after that, I'm going to read the next book I wrote this year, which is What Reaches You Was Never Meant to Miss You. And then I put in a subtitle that might make some people chuckle. Maybe this book was meant to reach you. And this is about, again, being in the now, looking at life as a gift. And if you're searching for God, you're missing God. God is everywhere. Everything and everyone in your life is a piece of the infinite creator. You don't need to go to church, the mosque, the temple, the mosque, the temple, or the church, right? You missed God on the way. How to see God everywhere? I'm not making faith wrong or going to church wrong. They're wonderful communities. I've been parts of them all my life. I was going to be a priest until I met a young lady on the high school bus. And I knew, thankfully, my mind played out what would happen if I became a priest while attracted to women. Wouldn't have worked. And I remember asking God, all right, if I'm not going to be a priest, how am I going to serve you? And then 34 years later, I was whacked with a 2x4. God brought me to the other side. He showed me what's next. And this small-minded thinker, this is how I created this work. The acorn brain is that little voice in our head, that's judging everything and everyone. It's the judge. We are the judge. God's not the judge. There was no mention in my life review of any sin, only the good I had done, the lives I had touched. No one's keeping score of our mistakes. That's human. And we're still listening to religious texts that are thousands of years old. You mean God hasn't modernized? We've modernized, but God hasn't? And God stopped speaking to people 2,000 years ago? No. God's speaking to you every day through people and events, especially the ones that bug you. You can see God and feel it when you feel a divine presence, when something joyous happens. The challenge is to be in that feeling, be in the moment, no matter what shows up, because it's all God. God's not giving you a story to complain about. God's giving you something to live by. Your purpose is in the challenges you have. It's to teach others. So let's suppose you're in a deep addiction. When you break the addiction, how you broke it, tell your story, share that with people. Maybe it's a deep depression, and you share that story, how you climbed out, maybe the many times you went back in and climbed out again, and help others. Your purpose is in the darkness, because just on the other side of the darkest moments are the light. A single match in darkness can light. Let's say you lock yourself in a closet in the middle of the night. There's no light. You light a match. It lights the way for you. Your darkest moments, your challenges have the greatest gifts in my experience. That's what occurred for me. And I don't want you to take my word for anything. Prove it to yourself that when you start looking at life as happening for you, there's where you'll find your gifts. And you'll come to realize that God has never been absent. And when people say to me, what do you mean there was only good mentioned in your life review? Come on, God's tracking sin. Let me ask you this. Which one of your children would you condemn to burn in hell forever because they made a mistake? Everyone I ask say, oh my God, Steve, no, I could never. So then your love then as a parent is greater than God's love for his creation or her creation? Because there was no one sex. Everything was one. The division is here so that we can learn and grow. There was the infinite presence of a creator way beyond my comprehension. Remember, that force created a universe that we cannot comprehend. Even with all our modern technology, we are still baffled. Physicists are still discovering things about the universe. That's the same for our life. What awaits us is beyond our comprehension, but I can tell you, follow certain things. How do you feel when you do good? You feel good. Why? That's what we're here to do. We're here to do good. We're going to make mistakes. We're here to do that too. We're here to fall. That's how we learn and grow. I haven't met someone who had the perfect life. And for the one person, and maybe other prophets who people feel have had the perfect life, look what happened to them in life, right? The human existence didn't like them. One got crucified. Others got killed in wars. Others were killed by people who disagreed. We're still doing that. Small-minded thinking. We have ego and small-minded thinking. We think we think like God. We are so far off, at least I was. And I still, back in my body, because one second I was in intensive care, the next second I was with God. There was that recognition that I was with God. There was only the now. Then there was my life review, only the good I had done. Even people I smiled at, bought sandwiches for. I could sense the presence of family and friends who had gone before me. And even people I smiled at flashed before me. The next scene was a question. Stay or go? And my consciousness surrendered totally with thy will be done. Didn't matter. Stay there, come back here. Now it's been 8,613 days since that day. I check it every day just because I like to see it on my computer, my phone. I like to see it. So I'm sorry. It's 8,614 days since November 18th. 8,614 days since my near-death experience. I wake up here, I know I got work to do. If I wake up again on the other side, it's amazing. And there's no past or future. There's nothing for us to worry about. And if we all had a glimpse like I did and came back, you wouldn't be so petty. None of us would be so petty. I still have to work against this little brain that wants me to react and get angry. Just remember, whatever reaches you was never meant to miss you. It's for you. Life is for you. Try it. And if you have any questions, you can email me, Steve. You can put a question in the chat here anytime. I'll be doing this every week, whether it's this book or other books I've written. Next, I'm going to be reading What Reaches You Was Never Meant to Miss You. Currently, I'm going to be reading chapter 6 next week. You missed God on the way to the mosque, the temple, or the church. How to see God everywhere. And if you want to email me, just email me, Steve. Just add a Steve here, Steve at stevelentini.com. You go to stevelentiniauthor.com and you'll see any of my books. And if you email me, if there's a particular book you'd like, I'll send it to you. I'm not trying to sell anything. I'm here to do good. That's what we're all here to do. All right. Enjoy. Any comments or questions? Fine. You can even challenge me. It's okay. Remember, I might ask you, does that sound like small-minded thinking? Have a great weekend.